Hallo.
Hello and welcome.
Are we doing this in English?
Are we talking about She-Wolf of London today?
Yes.
Then I think we are going to do this in English because the context of this video or podcast episode, in my opinion, demands it, right? Because we wanted to make a special Halloween episode with Sam from Sammy's Reviews, and therefore we all had to watch a bunch of underrated horror movies. Everybody suggested a list, but now we are probably not going to film that video. Instead, we are going to film another video, so stay tuned for another video. But I already gave Sam your list of movies, and on the top of your list was a film called She-Wolf of London, a supposedly underrated horror werewolf movie. And I had to talk about it because I've already seen it now, and it's bad. It's real bad. But Tom, I think you should have the chance to explain yourself, explain what this awful movie is about.
Yes, first of all, I really like this film. The first time I watched it, I also thought it was kind of bad, but the more times you watch it, the better it gets. And once you know what you're in for, I think the expectations will be exactly what they're supposed to be. Because, yes, spoiler alert, this isn't actually a werewolf film, which is probably the problem that most people have with it, which I think is a bit silly. So yeah, the biggest complaint I've heard about this film is basically that its title doesn't really fit the movie. Okay, whatever. But this is a very interesting psychological drama. I'd say it's more similar to Cat People and to the original screenplay of The Wolfman, because the screenwriter of The Wolfman actually wanted it to be a mystery whether Larry Talbot actually transforms into a wolf or if it's all in his head. But of course, Universal Studios wanted to have like a cool monster on the poster, so yeah, it became the werewolf movie we all know and somewhat love. But with She-Wolf of London, they basically took the other direction, where it's explicitly told that the woman in this film doesn't actually transform into a werewolf. Instead, it's I just explained the plot. So basically, there's this young woman, and her stepmother or whatever is trying to make her believe that she's a werewolf, so that she will basically be out of the picture and the mother can inherit all her wealth or something like that. And yeah, it sounds a bit ludicrous. It is definitely a bit of a silly plot, but I think what really makes this film interesting is this character of the evil stepmom, because when you first watch this film, of course, the first thing you're gonna think about when she gets introduced is, oh, okay, this is your stereotypical evil stepmom figure, whatever. It's so obvious she's evil. But then
But then it turns out it's even worse than that. She's incredibly stupid. Her entire character is basically, I don't want to be poor. I want to live in a big house. Therefore, I'm going to become a serial killer running around in the same scarf that my daughter wears and that also my stepdaughter wears, and killing people in the park next to the house with a gardening tool, pretending to be a werewolf. How is that a good character? It's worse than your stereotypical evil stepmother. It's stupid, I think.
see, you're completely missing the point, I think. Of course, it's a bit of a silly plan, but like, you can look at a film like Vertigo, and the villain there also has a stupid ass plan. Nobody should really give a fuck about this plan being silly, because it's about the character and it's about the film. And yeah, I think it's really well done how her character appears to be this evil stepmom at first, but then she talks to her daughter why she shouldn't marry that one guy and stuff, and she tells about their family history and how they could lose their house and their entire life if this marriage goes through. And you as the audience start to kind of sympathize with her in that regard, because yeah, she has like a good point, an actual good motive, I'd say.
No, she doesn't.
Yes, she does. What the fuck, man? So yeah, you start to sympathize with her, and then of course, once it's revealed that she's the killer, it gets very disturbing, especially if you watch this film a second time, and you have this wonderful scene where they are at the breakfast table, and she's reading out of the newspaper about a little boy that was murdered. And when you pay close attention to the mother in the knowing that she's the killer, her acting is so brilliant, so subtle. It really reminded me of like watching Scream for the second time when you know who the killers is.
Because the acting of the killers in Scream was so subtle.
No, it wasn't as subtle as in She-Wolf of London, but you know, it's like the same thing where you notice these little details that you don't think about when you first watch it.
Yes, I've seen Shandilman, thank you very much.
I haven't, but yeah, anyways, I really like it whenever a film gets better the more times you watch it, and I think this is very much the case. It truly gets disturbing and horrifying once you watch it a second time, and
that may all be the case, but the problem is that I'm never going to watch it a second time.
Well, then it's your loss. I mean, you're if you don't want to watch a great movie, then I mean, go for it, I guess. And I also really, really like the ending where the mother is revealing her plan after having drugged her daughter, and she's so ice cold in the scene when she tells her she's gonna kill her. It's really great acting. It's a really cool character in my opinion. And okay, the very ending where she falls off the stairs and stabs herself, it's a bit silly, sure, it's funny, but everything that came before it was genuinely very intense, and yeah.
A bit. What's more silly than that? I mean, give me 2 seconds to make up a way better screenplay. Let's say you take the exact same screenplay, but at the ending, the main character, the stepdaughter, has to kill her stepmother. And so at the end, she only has a happy ending and can continue her life, figure out the truth by becoming the killer she always was afraid to be. Because the stepdaughter thinks for like half of the movie that she might be crazy or she might be an actual werewolf, that she might be the serial killer. Then she figures out, no, it's her stepmom. And then the stepmom runs down the stairs and stabs herself out of an accident because she falls down the stairs and so on. Let's just imagine that the stepdaughter actually had to kill her stepmom, thereby becoming, ironically, the killer she was always afraid to be, and thereby having her happy ending. See, it took me like 2 seconds to figure out a way better screenplay than what we actually have in this movie. I'm sorry, that's, I think, a good point from me and for me.
Yeah, I agree. The ending could definitely have been better, but I'm making a point. I'm not trying to say that this is like the greatest movie ever made, because the topic was underrated horror films, and this film is universally pretty disliked, and I think unfairly so, because it's really nitpicks. I mean, the ending, okay, isn't as strong as it could have been better. The title is a bit misleading, whatever. The rest of the film, in my opinion, is really interesting. I really like the story. I mean, you've explained it yourself. She thinks that she may be insane or that she may be an actual werewolf. That's an interesting character. I'm sorry.
It's the same character that we already had in The Wolfman. I watched the original Wolfman again, and that movie was actually a lot better than I had remembered it. And the thing is, yes, it is false advertising if you promote this as a werewolf movie, if you put it in a box set together with all the other Wolfman movies that are all about werewolves. And what I love so much about the original Wolfman is not the incredible characters or something, because none of those original Universal monster movies have incredible characters. This is not like, I don't know, The Piano Teacher or something like that. Those movies are, in a sense, about a comic-esque aesthetic, even with over the top acting, over the top characters, monsters, the creature from the Black Lagoon, and so on. Is that a great villain for a horror movie? Of course not, but you watch it because of the rubber suit and so on. And I watch werewolf movies, those old Universal werewolf movies, for a handful of things: to see black and white photography, a bunch of fog, an old castle. And
we have in this film, we have a bunch of
fog. It plays in London. It plays in London.
So
it plays in a city and in a park and in some random house. They could move away at any time, in a sense. If the thing is, in the original The Wolfman, the main character comes from a big city in America and he moves in to an old gigantic house somewhere in the Scottish Highlands, probably even. And you immediately see how far he is removed from any type of civilization. That creates a type of atmosphere where you understand from the first shot of this film that this is a completely unique werewolf aesthetic, right? That it's completely intertwined with the entire werewolf aesthetic is the old house in Scotland, the moor, the swamp, basically, the fog, the full moon, and all of that shit, even though you don't see even the full moon in the original Wolfman. All of that creates a certain atmosphere, together with the music, together with the werewolf costume, and so on. So what do you actually see in She-Wolf of London? You see a woman with a scarf wandering around through a park. That's like the most spectacular thing you're going to see in this film. And then you also have, there are a bunch of things that I like about this movie. Right? I'm fair to this movie. One of the things that I like about this movie is someone quoting Shakespeare. That's nice. Then another thing I like about this movie is when the evil stepmother wants to poison the stepdaughter with milk. We have a bunch of Dutch angles, right? Like the camera's doing this. That's nice. That's about it, I think. I don't think that the main character is interesting because we have this in pretty much every werewolf movie. It has already been a cliche that you have a main character who is not sure if they are just crazy or if they are an actual werewolf or not. Oh my god.
But in what other werewolf film do you have actually not be a monster? I mean, except for cat people.
It isn't a werewolf movie. That's the thing. In which other werewolf movie you are already contradicting yourself, because this isn't a werewolf movie. It shouldn't be in this box set. You gave me a box set with werewolf movies and there was this thing in it. Look, I have no problem with like a psychological thriller. I have a problem with false advertising, but I don't have a problem with a good psychological thriller. But I don't think that this is one. And I don't have a problem with a good melodrama. I don't think it's a good drama either. It's just a character cliche we know from other better actual werewolf movies. And an evil stepmom. A few Dutch angles, a quote from Shakespeare, and a park and a house. That's it. I don't see how this is, especially, you know what fucked me up the most? That I really wanted to like this movie because the other movies you recommended were this Sweeney Todd, the original Sweeney Todd. Okay, that movie was alright. It's like serial killer barber from Fleet Street. He kills people and... Yes, okay, I can live with it.
And Todd Slaughter is fucking amazing in every film he's in.
Yes, you introduced me to the actor Todd Slaughter. That's for sure a real name. And Yeah, I liked him. I liked his acting. It was sort of unique, And then the second movie you recommended was Frankenstein Created Woman, like an old Hammer horror movie. And that one was actually pretty amazing. If I would do something silly like give a movie stars and something like that, I would give Frankenstein Created Woman like 4 out of 5 stars or something like that. I think that movie had great atmosphere, a great plot synopsis, great scenes, great acting even. I think Peter Cushing is in it and so on. That's all amazing, and I loved the movie Frankenstein Created Woman and so on. And I thought that this movie then, She-Wolf of London, because you put it at your first spot, even before Frankenstein Created Woman, I thought this movie was going to be better than Frankenstein Created Woman. I want you to say, Tom, to admit that She-Wolf of London is not better than Frankenstein Created Woman.
It wasn't on top of my list because it's better, it was on top of my list because it's more underrated. Because Frankenstein Created Woman is a bit of a cult classic. Martin Scorsese has called it one of his favorite films. He screened it in one of his film festival things or whatever. So people, if they're into the horror scene, they will probably at least have heard about it in a positive way. I think She-Wolf of London is very unfairly forgotten about, because I guarantee you, if this film had produced by Val Lewton in its credits, everyone would say how amazing and genre-defying and so and whatever it was, because this is maybe my biggest complaint about this film, that it is somewhat of a cat people rip-off, a copycat if you want. It's very similar in its psychological, is she a monster, is she not kind of way, and even has in Cat People, it remains unclear, I think, if she ever transforms. It's more implied, and in this film it's explicitly said that she's not a monster, so that's a difference, I guess. But yeah, I think it has a really cool atmosphere. You're talking about the scene where she's in the park, but you forget to mention that it is a really atmospheric scene. It has the thick fog, it has the cinematography, it has the tension of not exactly knowing where the monster is, what she is, who she's gonna attack, and so on. I think it works really well, and yeah.
Until you see a woman with a scarf.
What do you have against the scarf?
Look, don't you agree that it's incredibly stupid that if you are trying to frame a murder on your stepdaughter, in part to save your own daughter from poverty, that it's then unbelievably stupid to run around with the same scarf that your daughter also wears in the same way even when you are committing those murders? Why would you ever do that? If you want to pretend to be a werewolf, why isn't she running around in a werewolf costume or anything like that? Why is she dressed up like her own daughter? Seriously, if that movie was directed by Hitchcock or something, he would have probably made a Freudian psychological plot point out of this. And he would probably explore that maybe the mother wants subconsciously to frame her own daughter also. That would be pretty amazing. But I think this movie is just unbelievably stupid. And it's this entire plot point with the scarf that is just ridiculous, right? Let's imagine you read the screenplay where it says, and then the mother runs around in the same scarf as her daughter to kill a bunch of people, and then when her daughter runs around with the same scarf at night, the police or the audience basically is made to believe that maybe the daughter is the killer because they wear the same scarf. It's simply there to fuck with the audience, to make a stupid plot point. And yes, I think this is absolutely ridiculous that one of the plot points of this movie is literally that she and her daughter, and I guess also the stepdaughter, are wearing the same scarf in the same way. How stupid can your screenplay be? Please admit that that's an incredibly stupid plot point that should have been solved in a completely different way, or that should have been explored in a Freudian Hitchcockian kind of way.
I don't think it's that big of a deal, really. is it dumb in a way? Sure. I mean, it could have been explored better or scrapped entirely. It's a bit of a half-hearted red herring, but I don't mind it. It adds a bit to the fun and to the mystery, in my opinion. I can forgive it for not making much sense. It's not a super realistic film, anyways, but it has some really cool ideas. Very nicely done scenes. Cool characters. I don't know what you.
No, but because how can this movie have an atmosphere if I see a woman in a scarf being directly in front of the camera and then people talking about, oh my god, are you wearing a scarf? Is she wearing a scarf? Have you seen a woman with a scarf? I laughed out loud. It was so silly. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm just a little bit. Maybe I got like Vietnam flashbacks from this Christian exploitation movie I watched where like everyone is wearing a scarf all the time and so on. And amazing. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
How is this movie called again? I have no clue. It's something evolution. And it's something about now biologists have solved the mystery which came first, the chicken or the egg, and then they figured out the egg came first because evolution says that simpler things transform into more complex things, and the egg is like simpler than the chicken. That is hilarious. Oh my god. What a perfect double feature. Let's make a scarf double feature with She-Wolf of London and then this other movie. I think those movies are equally ridiculous.
I mean, that sounds like a lot of fun, but actually famous scientists, Lars Lach has actually solved the mystery. The chicken came first because the chicken has to lay the egg, obviously.
Damn, is that real? Is that for real?
No, it's just some guy I used to go to school with who was 17 when he first heard about the chicken and egg thing. And he was really confused, and then he said, of course the chicken had to come first, it had to lay the egg.
Nice. I mean, to quote the incredible filmmaker Amro El Tetabi, I only figured out what blind peoples are when I was like 21. Before that, I always thought blind people were like all part in a gang, and that those things they wear on their arms are like gang symbols, and that the sticks they walk around with are weapons, and the dogs they walk around with are like attack dogs and so on. And they always wear sunglasses because they are like high on drugs and so on. You cannot top that, Tom. And yes, I don't know. Is there anything more to say? One other thing I enjoyed about this movie is that it's even under 60 minutes long. That's great. I didn't lose that much of my life, of the time of my life.
Yes, it's really well paced as well.
No, it isn't. It was still boring.
No, it was not. Everyone who has watched this episode for this long, go and watch this film and really pay attention to the little character details whenever the murder is mentioned, and really think about the terrifying implications that this film and this story and the characters have. I think it's a really underrated film. It may not be the greatest film ever made or whatever. It may just be in my opinion, above average psychological drama, thriller, whatever. But yeah, I really like it. I think it's unfairly underrated.
So, this is the second time in the history of the 2 podcasts, or maybe even 3, I don't know, that we are making. We have also a German version of the Werthof podcast. And it has only happened once that I actually had to warn people from a movie that you recommend. And that I actually had to say, Tom, it is immoral.
Oh yeah, and by the way, the other film I think is also an underrated horror film that I highly recommend. So check out both of them. Do a double feature of those 2.
Robert, we discussed this movie with disgust from my side on the German version of the Werthof podcast. And back then I said that it was deeply unethical, in my opinion, to recommend this movie because most people are not going to enjoy it, you, Tom, know that most people are not going to enjoy it, and you still recommend it because it's like, I don't know, some type of a joke for you, which is fine, but I have to correct this. I repeat, do not watch She-Wolf of London, except as a double feature with this other Scarf movie. And then it's also just because it's like maybe it could be a meme to watch this film. I don't know, but you're still wasting your time if
No.
you want to watch anything that's entertaining or original or interesting or entertaining. Do not watch this movie, Sam. I beg you, and I'm sorry if you've already seen it. Yeah.
Okay, look, yes, Robert is a bit of a joke, but She-Wolf of London is no joke. I genuinely, unironically like this film. I think it's
And I genuinely
so
and
underrated.
unironically hate it.
because you're
All
an
I have for
idiot.
it is
You're an
hate.
idiot.